So you're at a party, and this guy Larry you run into, he says, "Anything funny you've done recently?" And I'm going to give you something you can tell Larry. Eventually, you can tell him, "I learned how to work with the future value formula to compute compound interest." So we see this all the time. You hear about compound interest if you've been into money or finance. I know when I previously had a career for several years as a financial advisor. Uh, I was a finance major in college, and I was just fascinated by compound interest, the idea that it is possible to invest money in something and over time see a return because of compound interest. So let's go, there's a formula that exists for this, so let's go through it here. And by the end of this video, you will know how to use the future value formula to understand how compound interest works from a number sense. So this might look familiar from maybe algebra class, or if you were a business major, or if you've been in finance. So it's the future value formula. And so it's FV equals P times 1 plus R raised to the T power. So let's go through what each of these things mean. So FV stands for future value. It's just the amount your money is going to be worth in the future if you're compounding it over time. P is principal. I actually have another video on this. I'll put it in the description box below if you want to watch it. I go through all the fundamental terminology when you're talking about stuff like this. But principal is basically just the money you start with. R is interest rate. So what kind of rate is, whether it's a loan or a savings account or money in the stock market, what is the rate of return or the interest rate over time? And T is time. So that one's up here. How many periods are there going to be? We're going to talk about it in years today, but over time, how much is this going to compound? Is it going to be over 20 years or what? So let's look at an example here of this to make this a little bit more clear. All right, got that out. So here is the same future value formula we just talked about, and gonna give an example here. So you have $10,000. Surprise! You have $10,000. Congratulations, of Apple stock. How much is it worth in the future using compound interest? If you're not sure about stock stuff or you don't have experience with it, just think about this like money you put in a savings account in a bank account. But I'm gonna just assume you understand what this means. So your P is the principal. How much money are you starting with? Yeah, that's right. $10,000 is the amount you're starting with. That's the principal. The T, we're going to do this over 2 years, and we'll also look at 20 years towards the end of the video. R is the rate of return you're going to get on it. And I'm really simplifying things here. I understand that Apple stock, because it might not return, it won't, I can guarantee it's not going to return 8% every year. But I picked this number because the stock market does tend to, over the long periods of time, when you go out 10 years or more, the stock market does tend to return around 8, 9, 10% every year when you look at long periods of time. So just kind of put that as a similar number as the stock market over long periods of time, 8%. So we're just going to plug and chug. So we're going to put these numbers into our future value formula. So we have the 10,000 we put here, and this is 1 plus rate. So 1 plus 8% written as a decimal is 0.08, or 8 0.08. So that's 1.08. And then our years is 2. So we raise the second power. So we're just taking this and plugging in the numbers. We want to solve for future value. So we're going to just do the math here. I've taught math before in algebra, so this is kind of fresh in my mind. So you're going to want to start with this. So you use PEMDAS. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. So parentheses, nothing to do here. Exponents, there's your exponent. So you're going to multiply this by itself one time, or square it. 1.8 times 1.08 times 1.08 is 1.1664. So we're going to put that here. It's the same thing as 1.8 squared, but it's simplified. We take 10,000 times 1.1664, and you get $11,664. So let's talk about what this means. If you put $10,000, let's say you go to TD Ameritrade, you open up an account, you put in your $10,000, buy Apple stock, and over 2 years, it makes 8% a year. This is going to be compounded. You'll end up with $11,664. After 20 years, this is where you're going to start to see the magic of compound interest. Remember, you only put in $10,000, but after 20, it's now worth $46,610. The only thing different you do here is you put a 20 here at the top, and then you're going to want to use a calculator for this. You can just do 1.80 raised to the 20th power on your calculator, and multiply that by 10,000, and you get this number here. So just to show you how this compares to simple interest, if you're making 8% a year, you're not factoring in the interest you're making on top of that. It'd only be $21,600 at the end of 20 years. That's kind of crazy. That's over twice as much with compound interest. So I think that pretty much clears things up. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments below. And also, I mentioned I dropped that video below about compound interest. It's a more fundamental video, so that might be a good place to start. And if you like what you're seeing here, please subscribe to the channel. And I look forward to seeing the next video.